Lord said that time am I, world-destroying, grown mature, engaged here in subduing the world, even without your action, all the warriors standing arrayed in opposing armies shall cease to be. Arjuna had told the Supreme Soul that, Lord, I cannot recognize you and I cannot understand you. In your Ugra Swarup, your terrible form, who are you? I bow down to you and offer my salutations to you, Lord. But tell me who you are in truth, for I know not your workings. In the 32nd and 33rd verses of this chapter, if you look at them in one way, then the Supreme Soul is very clear. And if you look at them in another way, then the Supreme Soul is an ocean of compassion. Arjuna asked the Supreme Soul to describe who he is. And in this verse, the first thing that the Supreme Soul says is what? Kalosmi. Time am I. The Supreme Soul is Kal, time. We have heard it again and again that the Supreme Soul is Kal, time. There are two meanings of the word Kal in the Sanskrit language. Kal firstly means time and secondly means death. First of all, the Supreme Soul says that he is Kal, time. What is the working of the Supreme Soul? The Supreme Soul says that he is world-destroying, and world-destroying is an adjective of Kal, time. The Supreme Soul is one who comes as time to destroy worlds. Shri Krishna uses the word, look at this, uses the word Vruddha, last word in the first line. This does not mean elderly. What does it mean? Remember first chapter? Vruddha means advanced. One who is Vruddha is one who is advanced. We call elders Vruddha in simple language, but in this verse, Vruddha does not mean such an elder who is weak and has wrinkles. Vruddha means one who is advanced. A Vruddha is someone who is advanced in age, advanced in wisdom, and advanced in experiences. One who is like this can be called a Vruddha. And in this verse, Shri Krishna uses the prefix pra before the word Vruddha to mean one who is advanced beautifully. Prakrushtena Vruddha. This is the meaning of the word Pravruddha. One who is world-destroying and one who is grown advanced is time and the Supreme Soul. In the fourth line of the 31st verse, Arjuna had asked the Lord, Nahi prajami tava pravrutim. Lord, I know not your working. Now in this verse, God says that, Lokan samatkartum ihi pravrutta. My working is to engage here in subduing the world. The Supreme Soul's activity is destroying the worlds. The Supreme Soul destroys worlds. The Supreme Soul then tells Arjuna that even without Arjuna and Arjuna's action, all the warriors standing arrayed in opposing armies, the Kauravas, shall cease to be. Shri Krishna tells Arjuna that even without Arjuna, the warriors of the army of the Kauravas are not going to last. Even without Arjuna, they will not escape. How clear a message has the Supreme Soul given? Therefore, if Arjuna is thinking in his mind that Arjuna is going to kill all these people, then this is Arjuna's mistake. Even if Arjuna goes, then the warriors on the side of the Kauravas are going to die. How clear a message has the Supreme Soul given? We must understand this verse properly. First of all, God says, Kalosmi, time am I. Time is God. Time is the form of the Supreme Soul. And because time is the form of the Supreme Soul, we must remember two things. First of all, we should never criticize time. Do not criticize the time. Many people have a habit of criticizing time. Especially when people reach a certain age, then they begin criticizing time a lot. They say, oh my God, what kind of time has come? What did they say in Gujarati? What type of time has come? Yeah. How good was it before? When people say what kind of time has come, then they're criticizing time. And when they're criticizing time, then they're criticizing the Supreme Soul. Never criticize time. But people like it very much to say that in my time it was like this, and before this used to happen, but now everything's been ruined, and bad times have come. Bad time never comes. I always ask one question, that where did time come from? What is time? Has time got any existence? No. We created clocks with 60 seconds in 1 minute, 60 minutes in 1 hour, and 24 hours in a day. God is an eternal existence. But human beings themselves have become bad, and human beings' own minds have become bad. They do not have the intellectual honesty to admit this, and therefore human beings blame everything on time by saying that time has gone bad. times have not gone bad, the human being has gone bad. The human being's mind has gone bad. How can time go bad? No, never criticize time ever. Never criticize time even in our own lives. There are the limits of language, and that is why I'll say that when people say that the good times in our lives have gone, and we are sobbing because bad times have come into our lives, then this is wrong, because there is no such thing as bad times in life. The karmas that we have performed have come in front of us. Therefore, when I say that you should not criticize time from a perspective of society, then even from a perspective of your own life, you should never criticize time. Time is a form of the Supreme Soul. Secondly, just like you should never criticize time, in the same way, never make wrong use of time. Do not waste time, do not misuse time, and do not abuse time. Time is eternally valuable. When I was young, then I read a quote from a thinker, and I've remembered it very well. It read, "If we do not value time, then time does not value us." If we do not value time, then time does not value us. Time is of great importance. We must protect the value of our own time, and in the same way, we should protect the value of others' times. Just like my time is precious, in the same way the time of the other person is also precious. The time of the other person is also valuable. Never criticize time, and never make wrong use of time. If one does this, then the person can reach God very soon. A person who uses life in the wrong way abuses time. Srimad Adi Shankaracharya Ji says in the Charpat Pancharika Stotra that Balastava Kriyastaka Tarunastava Taruni Magna Vridastava Chintamam Parabrahman Kopina Lagna. When a child is young, then its mind is engaged in playing with toys. When it grows up, then it gets pleasure. Boys get pleasures from girls, girls get pleasures from boys. And then when it's old, then its mind is occupied in worries, but it is never joined with the Supreme Brahman. When a child is young, then its mind is occupied in playing with toys, and it loses its whole childhood of 8, 10 or 15 years. Then the child becomes a youth, and when it is a youth, then it only does one thing, looking at people of the opposite sex. Boys look at girls, and girls look at boys. This is how all the time of one's youth goes away. And then after doing this again and again, one does not even know where all the time went, and old age comes. Now all the worries begin, and one thinks that one's whole life is gone. Now they do not have as many years left as they already lived. What therefore will they do now? But this person never got married with and never joined with the Supreme Brahman. This person never thought about Brahman on any day. Now we begin a study of the Bhaja Govindam. Srimad Adi Shankaracharya Ji says in Bhaja Govindam that Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Murmate. Prapte sandhite marane nahi rakshate rakshate karate. Worship Govinda, worship Govinda, worship Govinda, O fool. Rules of grammar will not save you at the time of your death. Srimad Adi Shankaracharya Ji then says, Yavad vita prajana sakta tabadni pravito ratra paschad tavati jarjar dehe vatra pachasi kopi nagehe. So long as a person has strength in his body to create wealth and earn money, his family gives him affection and asks him to do things for them. But when his body becomes old and infirm, and his strength to earn money and giving other happiness finishes, then nobody at home cares to even have a word with him or ask him how he is or how he feels. That is why Srimad Adi Shankaracharya Ji says, Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam Murmahe. Worship Govinda, worship Govinda, worship Govinda, O fool. But one should perform penances for the Supreme Soul while there is strength in one's body. Bhadvari says, Yavatcha Andriya Shaktira Pratihata Yavad Shoya Ishahe Prudipte Bhavanecha Upakaranam Pradyuttuma Kidrasha. While there is strength in the body, then there is strength in the senses. While life is not being finished, during that time one should remember the Supreme Soul, because of what use is it of digging a well where there is no fire? Srimad Adi Shankaracharya Ji says further in the Bhaja Govindam that Amgam Galitam Palitam Mundam Dashana Viham Jalam Tundam Vruddho Yata Grita Dandam. The body has become useless, one's hair has turned grey, all one's teeth have fallen out, and one moves around holding a stick. The state comes and stands in front of us, and old age comes, and the person sits down to begin devotion saying, Hey Vala, my dear, what can your dear do at that time? Only when one feels like this do they have an attitude of digging the well. This will not work. One should go to the Supreme Soul when they have strength in life. God realizes that the person considers him dear when the whole world rejects this person. While the person has strength, then God does not seem dear to the person, but now God seems dear to the person. God says that he is Gal, time. Never criticize time, never make wrong use of time, and never complain about time. Secondly, Dr. Radhakrishnan says it very nicely that time is the prime mover of the universe. In the whole cycle of the world that is running, if this has a prime mover, then this is time. If you look at it one way, then time has no existence. There is no tangible existence of time. You cannot show anyone time by saying that this is time. You can show someone what it says on your watch, but this is relative. If it shows 12 p.m. on your watch in India, then if you call someone east in Hong Kong, at that moment then a different time of 2 hours ahead would show on that person's clock. And if you call someone in Dubai or Muscat, then it would have the watch 1.5 hours behind. If you call someone in London, then the watch will be even further behind. And if you call someone in America, then the watch will be 9.5 hours behind. Therefore, this, what we're showing on the clock, is not time. Time has no tangible existence. Yet it is still the prime mover of the universe. The Supreme Being takes up the responsibility for both creation and destruction. This process that is continuously running, that is happening within and inside this, is which we divide into time. The Supreme Soul can say that Kalo Asmi, time am I. Why is this? The first reason for the importance of this is that the Supreme Soul himself is beyond time. You can only create ownership over something if you are beyond it. Bondages of time and place do not affect the Supreme Soul. God was in the past, is in the present, and no matter what times come in the future, the Supreme Soul will be there. But we are bonded in time. We were not in the past, we are in the present, and in 50 or 100 years' time, the time will come when we're not there. But God is beyond time, and that is why God can govern over time. If a person sitting on a horse thinks that I am the horse, then she would not be able to control the horse. But the moment the rider knows that she is not the horse, and that she is sitting on the horse, because she has the reins in her hands, that is why she can control the horse. The state can even come to us if we go beyond time. Scientists say this, yet it has always been written in our scriptures. But science has now proved that there is one way to increase the longevity of human beings and to increase the lifespan of human beings. This is what medical science tries to do. But scientists go further than this by saying that human beings can reach the state where they will not die. When can they reach the state? Birth and death happen within the bondages of time. Scientists are looking for a possibility, and they are very close to finding the fact that those human beings who go beyond time can never die and they become immortal. This only happens if human beings escape the time frame, and this is possible. Human beings have learned to come out on the atmosphere and to go into space, and now human beings will be able to reach a state where they come out of the time frame and time does not affect them. In the last 35 years, Western scientists have been doing research on this. In California, there was a very big multimillionaire who died about 10 years ago, and in his will, he stated that if I die, then my body should be preserved. All the wealth I have should be used for one purpose, and that is to preserve my body. The wealth should be spent on whatever medicines or injections are needed in order to preserve my body. Whatever you do, my body should not deteriorate. The reason for this is that this person has read somewhere that scientists have been conducting experiments in this field in order to reach the goal so that they can make human beings immortal. This person thought that if this is possible, then if the body is still there, then the person's life can also come back. If the body goes away, then how will the life come back? With this wish, he wrote this in his will, that scientists should preserve his body, and he wrote at the end of the will that all his wealth should be spent on preserving his body, and wherever this is discovered, then his life should come back in this body so that he can begin moving around again. In the last 20 to 20 years, it is a reality that this person's wealth is being used in order to preserve his body. His body has been preserved for 20 to 22 years. It is just the way as if he had died yesterday. He has been kept in this way. What type of strange wishes do people have? The Supreme Soul says that Kalo Asmi, time am I. God is firstly beyond time. While commentating on this, Srimad Ramanujacharya says that time is that which calculates. Kalayati ganayati iti kalaha. The definition of time, according to scriptures, is that which calculates. When God says that Kalo Asmi, time am I, then what is God trying to say? Ramanujacharya says that the Supreme Soul is saying that I am time that is calculating the end of the lives of the kings fighting for the leaders in the armies of the Kauravas. Sarvesham Tatasha Ramukhanam Raja Lokanam Ayurvasanam Ganayam Aham. The Supreme Soul is calculating the last moments of the warriors that Arjun is seeing in the armies of the Kauravas. This is what the Supreme Soul is. And God says that his work is what? It is to subdue and to destroy the world. The Supreme Soul destroys the world. How much courage do you need in order to say this? This is because everybody is afraid to destroy. Everybody says that this is a wrong deed. Only one with courage can say that they do this. If we look at it one way, then destruction is also necessary and destruction is also needed. Just like a person's birth is necessary and their life is necessary, just as necessary is the destruction, the death and the dissolution. Death is also extremely necessary. Think about it for one moment, what the world would be like if a person gets born and keeps on living and living and living. What if the end never comes? If this happens, then there will be difficulties. There will be difficulties for those who are coming to the world anew. There would be before them, and each and every house will no longer be a house but a museum. If you go to any house, then you will see heaps and heaps of old people. Forgive me for this. The house will just be completely full of old people. If you go and ask anyone who this elderly person sitting in the first corner is, then the person will be scratching the head and will say, if I have not forgotten, this is my grandfather from the 32nd generation. This is because nobody would ever die. Death is also necessary. This is a rule of life. Shri Krishna said in the 27th verse of the second chapter of the Gita that Chatasya hi dhruvo matyu ruvam janma mrityuscha. For one that is born, death is certain, and certain is birth for one who has died. It is certain that one who is born will die, and just as certain is the fact that someone who will die will be reborn. If one is going to be liberated, then this is a different matter altogether. Otherwise, another birth is certain for one who has died. Although we can see the journey from our births to our deaths, we cannot see a journey from our deaths to the next births. That is why we feel that who has seen this? But in reality, it is a fact of life. God says that Kalo Asmi, time am I. The Supreme Soul then tells Arjun that even without Arjun, these events in life will keep running. In the Vishnu, the universal form, God makes one thing very certain, and that is nothing stops in the absence of any person. If you take your finger out of the water, then that space will immediately become filled. In the same way, your space in the world will immediately become filled. You should never have the egotistic attitude while living in this world that what will happen if I were not here? The best of all things will happen. Just go and see. The nicest of all things will happen. It would not make a difference. So many people have left, but has anything stopped? No. It has kept running. Shri Krishna says that with so much clarity that even if Arjun does not go into war, then even then will the Kauravas die. This is because they have been created in order to die. If Arjun does not kill them, then Shri Krishna will make a second Arjun stand up, and a third Arjun stand up, and a fourth Arjun stand up. If Shri Krishna can make one Arjun stand up, then Shri Krishna can make 10 Arjuns stand up. The Kauravas will certainly die. When God said this, then Arjun must have had a little fear. The feeling and expressions of Arjun's face must have changed, thinking, is it like that, God? If you're doing all of this, then what need is there for me? Why are you telling me to do all of this and that I should go into battle? If you're saying that even without me, the Kauravas will die, then God, why should I go into battle? And many times it so happens, when someone says something very clearly, then it hits the other person like a stone, and the other person feels sad. These feelings must have been there on Arjun's face, thinking that God, is it like that? And because God has love, God has said this sentence very clearly, and then in the next verse, God tells Arjun why Arjun is needed and what the use of Arjun is. Next verse.